In this video, I'm going to show you some tricks on how to thread a needle for hand sewing and for embroidery, and how to tie a knot. This tutorial will be useful not only for people who are just learning to sew and don't yet know how to thread a needle, but also for people who are experienced in sewing and learned how to thread a needle 30 years ago. It seems so easy to thread a needle. You just push the thread through the needle eye, and that's it. How can it be so frustrating? So it's used to describe other things that are difficult. But the frustration may start right away when you take the real tiny needle with the little eye and try to thread it with a thin piece of thread. So, first of all, you take the thread end from the spool and make sure that the cut is nice, clean, and there are no fibers coming apart. In most cases, it's enough just to cut the end of the thread with sharp scissors and lick the thread. See, this thread end is no good. We have to cut it with sharp scissors. And now it is good. Don't break the thread with your hands or with your teeth if you don't want problems with threading the small needle eye. A messy edge will be hard to thread, but sometimes cutting and licking don't help. Look at this shiny thread. I use this thread to sew a metal frame to the leather purse I made. I didn't want my hand sewing stitches be visible on the frame, so I had to put this thread through the tiny eye of my leather sewing needle. It wasn't enough just to cut the thread. Fibers didn't stay together, and the thread was splitting at the end. This situation is common with some other types of threads too, especially when the thread is thick, like an embroidery floss or yarn, and made out of multiple thinner threads. Also, in some cases, we need to thread the needle with double thread, like this. And it's practically impossible to do it the regular way. In this case, we need to do something to keep all the fibers together to push it through the needle eye, right? I recommend using a few different things that will stiffen up the thread. First, you can use a beeswax. They sell it in all fabric stores, but usually we don't have it handy when we need to thread a needle. So, I just use a lip balm from Burt's Bees. It has enough beeswax to hold the threads together. See how easily the thread, double thread, goes to the needle eye right now. This is double thread. But sometimes beeswax is not enough. For example, it didn't work with my silver thread. So I used a glue stick in this case and tried to make the thread end as flat as possible. And cut it with sharp scissors to make the edge clean of fibers. And now let's thread the needle with this silver thread. See how easy it goes. And if this doesn't work, then use a fabric glue. It holds everything together without any problem. Just make sure that you use a proper size needle. The needle eye may be too small for the thread you plan to use. In this case, nothing will help you to push the needle through the eye. Now let's see how easy it will go in the needle. See? It goes right away. But of course, you have to cut this end afterwards. Okay, what else will help us to thread a needle? There are special needle threaders that are very easy to use and they are very handy. You can buy them in fabric stores. So, how do you use one? Slide this loop into the eye of the needle. Place the thread into the loop. See, the opening is quite big. And pull the threader out of the needle. You see how simple it is. But these little threaders break very easily, unfortunately. And of course, if you don't sew very often, you don't think about buying them. Or they get lost in a box somewhere. I have a more solid threader. I didn't manage to break it in 1 year, but I have no idea where it is right now. Can you relate? I think so. But if you don't have these handy threaders, don't worry. There is something else you can use instead of them. Dental floss threaders, intended for flossing dental braces, crowns and bridges. They usually sell them in big packs. This one, for example, has 25 threaders, and they are thin and flexible. Action is practically the same. Put the thread through the circular opening. Stick the pointy end through the eye of the needle and pull. I have some more tricks for today. I want to show you something else. Use lamps with magnifiers. It will help you to see the tiny needles and thin threads better. For example, this lamp has a magnifier with large diameter, which provides a wide viewing area and offers distortion-free magnification. Or sometimes I like to use this small magnifier. The needle eye looks much bigger here. There is also another little trick to manage threading a needle. Maybe you will like it. Instead of holding the needle and trying to push the thread through the eye, hold the small thread end with your 2 fingers and move the needle over it like this. Some people say that this way it's much easier to thread the needle. Another trick to thread a needle looks like magic to me. Rub the needle and thread as in the clip. It seems so easy, but in reality it doesn't work always. Try it for yourself. I could do it only with this huge needle and thick thread. So what's the point? I can thread this big eye the regular way without any problem. But it's cool. Let's do it again. Another tip. There are self-threading needles now. See how they look. And they are even sold with this very handy decorative magnet holder. Just slip the thread into the groove at the top of the needle and push it down into the eye. And the thread stays, doesn't go out anymore. Okay, let's do it again. There is groove on the top, push needle down. That's it. That's all the threading. Very easy. I am out of tricks now about threading a needle. Now let me show you how to tie a knot, because usually we cannot sew without a knot. There are some exceptions, but I will tell you about them later. So, there are a few ways to do it. First way, just tie the end of the thread twice or even 3 times. And cut. Another way, and most people do exactly that, wrap the thread around your finger, roll the thread between your fingers and pull it tight. But I know just one more easy way to do it, and the knot in this case doesn't look messy ever. For this, take the thread end and wrap it few times, 2 or 3, on the needle. Hold the loops with your thumb and index fingers, which are already holding the needle, and pull the needle away with your other hand. And here is the knot. In most cases you will have to cut the thread that is left after the knot and make the knot neat. It's not necessary for basting though, because you will have to take the thread out anyway. As I told you before, I know 2 ways to start sewing without a knot. The first way, thread your needle with double thread. This is the end, and both thread ends goes into the needle eye. Start sewing. And insert the needle in the loop. Now your sewing will be secured. The other way, thread your needle with a single thread. Start sewing. Make a small stitch right near the point where you inserted the needle. And make a little loop. Bring the needle through the loop and pull the thread tight. It will form a knot close to the fabric. And in the end, some more information about threading a needle. For any hand sewing, the thread length should be between 45 and 80 centimeters or 18-32 inches. The thread too short is not good because you will have to change it often, and the thread too long will be snagging. To prevent snagging, you should thread your needle with the thread end that comes off the spool. And tie the knot on the end you cut. This way, the twist of the thread will be working with you, not against you. Threading can be done with single or double thread. In most cases we use single thread for sewing because double thread kinks easier. But sometimes it's better to have it double, for example for putting buttons. It will speed up your sewing. Some people use beeswax to smooth the thread all the way, so it slides through the fabric easier and doesn't kink or knot. Just draw your thread through the edge of the wax and smooth it with your fingers a couple of times for even distribution. But I advise you not to use the wax for very lightweight fine fabric because the wax can melt and stain the fabric. That's all for threading a needle. Check the links below this video for more sewing tutorials and share this video with your friends if you find it helpful.